All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to deconstruct one of the most ridiculously overpowered abilities in all of modern anime. We're talking about a power that literally brings the whole philosophical concept of infinity to life. So let me ask you this. What if you were, like, literally untouchable? That's the core question behind Satoru Gojo, the strongest sorcerer in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen. His signature ability makes him, for pretty much all intents and purposes, completely unreachable. But how? How does it actually work? Well, you might be surprised to hear it's not really magic. It's logic. Okay, so Gojo's inherited technique is called limitless. And, well, as the name kind of implies, it gives him control over space itself by manifesting the concept of infinity. Now, this isn't just some simple force field he's throwing up. No. It's a fundamental distortion of the very world around him.
So what does that really mean? It means Gojo isn't just putting up a shield, he's literally manipulating the fabric of space around him. Now, this limitless technique, it's been passed down in his family for generations. But what makes Gojo so special, the real game changer, are the 6 eyes. This is this super rare ocular ability that lets him see the flow of cursed energy, the power source in this universe, in just incredible detail. Think of it like seeing in ultra-high definition, which lets him use his own massive power with almost zero waste. And get this, he's the first person in over 400 years to be born with both limitless and the 6 eyes. Yeah, a total prodigy.
Okay, so how does this actually work in practice? It's fascinating because Gojo himself explains his ability by pointing to a really old philosophical puzzle. He basically says, look, anything that tries to get close to me just slows down. Infinitely. It never actually reaches me. And this idea, it's not something the author just made up. It's a famous thought experiment that goes all the way back to ancient Greece. Right, and this is Zeno's paradox. So picture this. You've got Achilles, the fastest warrior alive, and he's in a race with a slow-moving tortoise. To be fair, he gives the tortoise a head start. Now, for Achilles to catch up, he first has to get to where the tortoise started. But in that time, the tortoise has already moved a little bit further ahead, right? So now Achilles has to cover that new, smaller distance, and while he's doing that, the tortoise moves again. See where this is going? It creates this endless series of smaller and smaller distances that Achilles has to cross. Logically, he can never ever overtake the tortoise. And that is exactly how Gojo's limitless works. It's not a wall. It's an infinite subdivision of space. So an incoming punch has to cross, say, the last foot of distance to hit him. But to do that, it first has to cross 6 inches, then 3 inches, then 1.5, and so on forever. The attack gets infinitely closer, but it can never complete that final tiny step because in the space Gojo creates, there is no final step. And this is way more than just a clever brain teaser for an anime power. This is a question about the fundamental nature of our reality, something philosophers have been wrestling with for thousands of years. So the concept at the very heart of Zeno's paradox is called infinite divisibility. It's a simple question. Can you keep cutting something in half forever? A long time ago, the pre-Socratic philosopher Democritus said, nope. He argued that eventually you'd hit a tiny, uncuttable, indivisible unit, what he called an atom. But, not everyone agreed. Others, like the famous Aristotle, had a very different take. Yeah, Aristotle argued that things like space and time are continuous. They aren't made of these tiny, indivisible points. He was firmly in the camp that, yes, you could divide a distance an infinite number of times. In Gojo's limitless technique, it's basically Aristotle's entire philosophy made real. A world where space is truly, physically, infinitely divisible. Okay, so this is where things get really weird. This idea, born from ancient philosophy and brought to life in a modern anime, actually has a bizarre parallel in the real world of quantum mechanics. Now, it's not a perfect one-to-one match, but the similarity is, honestly, it's pretty uncanny. So just look at this comparison. On one side, you've got Gojo's infinity. It works by forcing something to pass through an infinite number of points, basically observing its progress at every tiny step and stopping it. And on the other side, we have the quantum Zeno effect. This is a real thing, a phenomenon where the evolution of a quantum system, think of a radioactive atom decaying, can be frozen just by watching it. I know, it sounds wild, but in essence, every time you measure or observe the system, you reset its decay clock back to zero. So if you measure it fast enough, over and over, you can actually prevent it from ever making the full transition. It's like the universe's ultimate watched pot never boils rule. So, just like Gojo's technique is perpetually watching an attack across an infinite space, the quantum Zeno effect shows us that rapid, repeated observation can literally freeze a system in place. How cool is that? All right, so if this power is based on the absolute logical concept of infinity, how in the world could it possibly be beaten? I mean, how do you attack someone who is, by definition, an infinite distance away, even when they're standing right there in front of you? The technique really does create a perfect conceptual defense. You simply can't travel an infinite distance. It's a simple, it's a brutal, and it's a seemingly unbreakable rule. But the king of curses, Sukuna, he understood you couldn't play by the rules of infinity and expect to win. He recognized that the goal wasn't to cross the infinite space. The goal was to make that space totally irrelevant. He had to change the entire game. And here's the brilliant, terrifying solution. If you can't cross the road to get to the person, just cut out the piece of road they're standing on. Sukuna didn't attack Gojo directly. No, he attacked the world that Gojo was occupying. His slash didn't travel through the infinite space. It targeted and cut the very coordinates of existence itself. It's an attack that doesn't need to travel because its target is space, completely bypassing that limitless shield. You know, when you think about it, Gojo's technique created this metaphorical barrier between him and the rest of the world, and that really reflected his profound isolation as the strongest. So its defeat suggests that no power, no matter how conceptually absolute it seems, can truly stand alone. The perfect defense was broken, not by just a stronger punch, but by a total paradigm shift. A reminder that the answer isn't always about being stronger, but about thinking differently. So it leaves us with a question. What does it truly mean to be untouchable? Maybe it's a state that's as impossible to maintain as infinity itself.